one of the biggest sacred cows of all is go to school. And many people think I'm anti-school. That is not true. I'm anti-ignorance. So I'm very pro-education. I'm just not pro being stupid about money.
I think that's true, that what you said is education is more important now than it's ever been.
That's right.
So the problem is that the schools focus just on two kinds of education. There's the academic, which is really important. Reading, writing, arithmetic, you need to have it, that's basic. And the second type of education they give is the professional kind of education. So if you want to be a lawyer or an accountant or a teacher, then you need to go to school and get those certifications. But the one kind of education that's lacking severely in the school system as it stands is financial education.
Time out. An important part of financial education is having a financial statement, which is an income statement and a balance sheet. Now, when you go to your banker always asks you for your financial statement, not your report card, because your financial statement is your report card once you leave school. Your financial statement will tell you whether or not you're smart with money or not smart with money, because that financial statement is your report card of your financial intelligence.
I put on my Facebook one day that we need to teach our children financial education, and I received a comment back from a teacher that said, who's going to pay for it? We're all going to pay for it if we don't start educating our children in school.
This is a very hot subject, but our schools are training people to be employees, to work for the rich. The second thing I don't like about school is how dare they label a kid as smart or stupid at an early age. The reason I'm sensitive to that is because I was labeled stupid right off the start. And it wasn't that I was stupid. I was bored, and I was not interested, and it was none of the subjects I wanted, and nobody could tell me how I was going to use calculus. I kept asking my teacher, how am I going to use calculus? And they couldn't tell me. Are they training to be an employee, or are they training to be street smarts? See, my poor dad was school smart, my rich dad was street smarts, and I'd rather be street smart today.
Well, there's a total lack of practical education is really what you're talking about. And I found that. I'm an accountant. I have a master's degree.
And you're an A student, right?
And I'm an A student.
We'll forgive you.
So, thank you. But when I went to school, the only financial education I got was specific to my profession. Okay, there was no general financial education. I could have gone all through, gotten a master's degree, got a PhD in my field without any specific financial education about how to handle myself once I got out of school.
Right, and people say to me, well, I learned economics in school. Is economics financial education? Not really. You know, it's not about investing, it's not about the laws, it's not about taxes, it's not about history.
Well, Robert, as a lawyer, I see all sorts of people walk through the door. And some are highly educated, and some have no education at all, but like you said, they're street smart. And the first time I saw this type of client, I thought, wow, he's doing pretty well. He didn't go to college, but he's got all this real estate. And then there's a pattern that develops where you see a lot of people who never went to college, but are street smart and have done very well.
I can just say, I was talking to a woman the other day, she's just as you're saying, highly successful doctor. Very, very successful. Medical doctor, very smart in so many ways, but when we were talking, she finally looked at me and she said, oh my God, she goes, I have not a clue about my money. She's 45 years old, not a clue. And you think that because they're successful, they know something about money. But so many people don't, because so many of us haven't had the education.
School puts us in a culture of dependence. We depend on three things. We depend on a corporation to take care of us, or we depend on government to take care of us, and the scary one, I think, is we depend on institutions. You know, the people we run our 401ks to take care of us.
Stock market.
And we put ourselves, we rob ourselves of the independence to think freely as entrepreneurs or investors, and we just become dependent on those three entities, and it's brutal.
And Mr. Maloney, you never finished school, did you?
No. I failed school, but more than that, school failed me. I was dyslexic. They didn't know what it was back then, but basically, I was just like you, bored stiff. I got put in all the remedial classes, so I was in with the dumb kids, basically. They weren't teaching me anything I wanted to learn or anything that I would ever use in my lifetime.
And the reason I bring up Michael, most people agree he's probably the smartest guy on this team. And the problem was, again, was Anita says, there's three kinds of education. It's academic, reading, writing, arithmetic. That's professional, become a doctor, a lawyer, in my case, a pilot. And number three is financial. But Michael was put back because of academics, because you can't read, right?
Right.
So how did you learn how to read?
Oh, well, Apple came out with OS 10 at the beginning of the last decade. And you can just select text and hit a button and the computer reads to you. Most people don't know it's built into the operating system. But more, I developed a passion for global finance and economics, and monetary history especially. And passion drives you.
Now we can't shut him up anymore. So I don't blame Apple for that.
School is a solo game. I didn't do well in school. I did very well in sports. And in sports, you learn to compete. You learn to deal with pressure, teams, goals. And school is more so individually. I'm competing against everybody, and teamwork is cheating in school. Some of us cheated better than others.
And I'll just say last thing about school and money, which is a sacred cow. One of the things that really upsets me about schools and money is this. In America, schools are based upon real estate tax. In other words, if you come from a rich neighborhood, the real estate tax pays for better schools. If you're from a poor neighborhood, you get less money. So anytime somebody tells me schooling is about being fair, that is, when I look at the numbers side of it, is if you're poor, you're getting the worst possible education. And to me, that is cruelty. So how does a person learn about money? How does a person increase their financial intelligence? This diagram, called the cone of learning, provides some interesting clues. The cone of learning was created by an educational researcher named Mr. Dale in 1969. And what he found is that the worst way to learn is by reading or listening to a lecture. And the best way to learn is at the top, which is simulations or games, and then doing the real thing. The interesting thing is my poor dad, who was good at school, thought that reading and lecture was the best way to learn. My rich dad taught me to be a rich man at the top of the cone. He taught me using the game Monopoly. You know, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. And then we went out and did the real thing. So one of the ways, if you want to learn without much risk, is by simulations, play games. The reason my wife and I created the cash flow game was so that you could play and learn physically, mentally, emotionally, but make a lot of mistakes with playing money. So how many people in this room have made financial mistakes?
You know, the only thing we were ever taught was maybe how to balance a checkbook, how to have a savings account, those basics.
Financial education is like learning another language. Yeah. You know, when you learn real estate, it's a different language than stocks. It's a different than entrepreneurship or commodities, oil or gold.
I say this all the time in Mexico. If you learn English, you can do business with the whole world.
When you learn to speak the language of money, it opens up a whole new world. Yeah. And unfortunately, in our school systems, we don't teach the language of money. We teach people the language of becoming a doctor, lawyer, or an employee. And the next sacred cow is get a job, or go to school and get a job. Now, the problem with getting a job is, who do you think pays the most taxes? The owner of the business or the worker? To that, I'll turn to my accountant here, Tom.
Well, it's clearly the employee who's paying the most taxes. And you know, I started as an employee right out of school, and I was paying high taxes. Even though my job is to reduce taxes, I was paying high taxes. And then I started, I know, ironic, isn't it? and then about 15 years ago, I started my own business. I started my own CPA firm, and I was now self-employed, and I was even paying more taxes. So it wasn't until I started acting like a bigger business and was really a significant sized business that I started paying less taxes. And it's because it's the business owners, and it's the entrepreneurs, and it's the investors, the active investors, that really pay the least amount of taxes.
Time out. During this program, you'll hear a lot about ESB&I, also known as the cash flow quadrant. E stands for employee. Employees have a job. S stands for self-employed, small business, or specialist, like a doctor or lawyer. These people own a job. B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, and these people have other people working for them. And I stands for an investor, and investors have their money work for them. Now, my poor dad always said to me, go to school and get a job, and he wanted me to become an employee or a specialist like a doctor or a lawyer. My rich dad said, if you want to be rich, you have to be on the business owner or the I side. And that's the difference between my rich dad and my poor dad. If you look at the cash flow quadrant, you have the E, S, B, and I. The people that go to school are on the E and the S side. The S stands for specialists like a doctor or a lawyer, and E's are employees. But doctors and lawyers pay the highest taxes, right?
Oh, by far. It's those people that are self-employed, because not only are they paying the highest income taxes, they also get the privilege of paying Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes on everything they earn. So they're paying extra taxes just to be in that S quadrant.
Right, so when you go to school, again, there's academic and professional. You go to school, and my mother wanted me to be a doctor. If I had followed in that footsteps, I'd be paying the highest tax possible. And they make a lot of money, but they pay the highest percentage in taxes. So that's why this relates back to go to school.
That's right, and they actually have the fewest options of reducing their taxes. The tax laws are really geared towards those people who are creating jobs. You know, and those are the entrepreneurs, those people who are creating housing and, you know, building real estate, because the government understands that's what we need. You know, we want the private sector to do that, and so we're rewarded for doing what the government wants us to do. And that's really all the tax law is. It's a system of rewards for people doing what the government wants you to do.
Plus, you know, the other part of it too is this whole idea of getting a job. There was some kind of a myth out there that goes with get the job, get a safe, secure job. And so that by getting a job, somehow you're going to be taken care of for the rest of your life. And all you got to do is pick up any paper to see how many tens of thousands of people are losing their jobs. There are no safe, secure jobs. And now we're competing with India and Asia for jobs that were sacred to America at one point in time. So this whole idea of having a job that was secure is probably the most insecure thing you could be doing right now.
The idea of a secure job is an industrial age idea.
Exactly.
The only option is put into your head is go get a job. And I wasn't around,
brainwashing.
Yeah, I wasn't around entrepreneurs. I wasn't around business owners growing up. I was around employees.
When I first started my company 15 years ago, I went back to my class reunion, which is always an interesting thing. And I remember saying to them, yeah, you know, I started a company about 5 years ago, and they looked at me like, oh, and some of them even said it. They go, you're so brave. And I'm thinking, you know, I've had this company for 5 years now. That is the longest I had ever worked anywhere.
See, without financial education, you have to get a job. What's tragic today is so many people losing their jobs. They go back to school to get another job, but they're now competing with their kids. You know, that's insanity. So we're not saying jobs are bad. We're just saying as entrepreneurs, our job is to create jobs. The government doesn't really create jobs. They need more entrepreneurs.
I didn't even know there was another option growing up. I didn't know there was another option. I didn't know. I thought all you could do was get a job. So again, it's not right or wrong to be an employee, but I'd like to know what my options are.
Right, because when you were in school, did they say, go to school, get your diploma so you can become an entrepreneur?
No.
I mean, you'll never hear that in the school system.
No, they said work your way up the ladder, get the bigger paycheck, get a better job, higher pay.
But you're right, job is the only option that you'll hear in school as a rule.
And job stands for just over broke, you know?
Well, to me, the real issue with the job is it's the highest risk profession you can have, because you only have one client. Now, when I started my business 15 years ago, it was after being fired from a job. And what I recognized was that, you know what, I had no control over my life because I had one client. That was my employer. Whereas now I have hundreds and thousands of clients. One client fires me, it's not the end of the world. You know, now my risk has gone down considerably, almost to nothing, where when you have a job, I mean, it's just a high-risk play.
Plus, the other thing is you're in complete control. That's the piece that I like. I like being able to, if I lose a client or
you're an entrepreneur because nobody would hire you.
Well, I'm unemployable, there's no question.
Tell the truth.
But it's nice, like you know, like if you're going to lose some business or you do lose some business, you can go out and generate business and fill that gap.
Financial security is more important than job security. Time out. E's and S's get punished for making mistakes, or they lose their job. B's and I's get richer from their mistakes because they learn from their mistakes. The next sacred cow is work hard. Because my poor dad, a school teacher, great guy, PhD, he always says, I'm a good, hard-working man. And My rich dad had a different point of view, and he had me read this book by Mark Twain. It was a story of how, I think it was Huckleberry Finn or somebody, got the other kids to paint the fence for him. He says, that's working hard. You want other people to work hard for you, and you want your money to work hard for you. That was his lesson. And a lot of people really, you know, they can't wait till Friday because they hate their work so much, and they dread Sunday because they have to go back to work. With us, I would say most of us are working 24/7, but we're working differently. And I love my work. And it's challenging, there's problems and all that stuff, but I love it. So we work hard, but we don't work hard in the normal sense of working hard. The problem with working hard for money, because the rich don't work for money, the problem with working hard for money is you pay more in what, Tom?
Taxes.
Taxes. The harder you work for money, the more you will pay in taxes, right?
Well, right. If instead of working hard for money, like you're talking about, instead if you work for assets, then you pay a lot less taxes because the tax law, again, is geared towards building assets. Because as we build assets, we build the economy.
Time out. The big difference between E's and S's and B's and I's, E's and S's focus on the income statement, and B's and I's focus on the asset column. My rich dad simply said to me, he says, assets put money in your pocket whether you work or not, and liabilities take money from your pocket. For example, my house is a liability because it takes money from my pocket every single month. Yet my rental properties are assets because they put money in your pocket whether you work or not. One of the reasons so many people are struggling financially today is they're buying liabilities they think are assets.
As we build assets, the economy grows, and the employees get benefits also, because now we have more jobs for more employees.
But on Michael's side, why are people working so hard is because the Fed's also working hard printing money, right?
Yeah, people. I've got friends that just say I need to get more hours, or I need to get a second job or something like that. They're working harder to make a few more dollars, but they don't realize that over this entire past decade, the average in real income after inflation has been falling. So the harder people work, the less they're making anyway, because the government and the Federal Reserve, the banking system, they're basically stealing it from them.
Can we bring in the bags of coins right now? Thank you.
I'm not going to hold that.
Oh, I'll give you an example. In the year 2000, one gold coin cost $300. So this is $300 in U.S. quarters. Today, in 2010, that same gold coin, it takes $1,100 to buy the same coin. So the reason people have to work so hard to keep up, to keep paying money, is because the value of your dollars are going down. So the insanity of going to get another job, pay more taxes, and work harder, when how many dollars did the Fed print in 2009?
From August of 2008 through 2009, they created about 1.5 times more paper dollars than it took 200 previous years to print.
So that's why people are working harder, because your money is worth less.
And it isn't the coin that changed. People don't understand that it isn't this price going up, it's the value of the dollar falling. It's the currency that's changing. The can of soup in the grocery store, that can of Campbell's soup, it's the same can with the same contents from back in 1950 when it was 15 cents to today where it's $1.95 or whatever it is.
So that's why the rules have changed. In 1971, the U.S. dollar stopped being money and it became a
currency, it became debt.
It became an IOU from the federal government. And the thing is, they can print as much as they like of it. And the more they print, the harder you have to work. It all takes place in your head. Take this glass here. In this case, the glass here is context. It holds the content, in this case, the water. E's and S's have a different context than B's and I's. Having a different context, E's and S's attract the sacred cows like go to school, work hard, live below your means. B's and I's, having a different context entirely, attracts a different type of content, different type of information, different type of education. Money is created out of your head. If you're a true B and I, you're not concerned. It's because just like the Fed, we can print our own money. And now we're going to the sacred cow of save money. And in 1971, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, basically took the world off the gold standard, and money was no longer money. So people are no longer saving money. So just to reiterate again, this is $300, what an ounce of gold was worth in the year 2000. So Kim, lift that. Okay. All right, and so this here is 1 ounce of gold in the year 2010, and it's now $1,100. Ugh, and this is why people are working so hard.
I can do it. I can do it. Yes, I can do it. Barely.
So the big reason I've said in my books for years that savers were losers is very simply because in 1971, the dollar stopped being money. It became debt. Right, Mike?
Yeah, the rules all changed in '71. Before then, somebody, when they became working age, they could expect to put away 10% a year, and by the time they got into their 60s, they could retire on their savings account and expect to live off that interest. And in '71, everything changed, and they started creating currency on a massive scale.
Worldwide.
Ever since then, worldwide. And that is what causes inflation and the loss of purchasing power. So people thinking that they can retire, you know, back in the 50s, if you got $100,000 or $50,000, you could retire on that. You know?
So for my mom and dad, you know, the World War II generation, the industrial age generation, it was very smart to save money. For our generation, the baby boom generation and all, saving money could be the most stupid thing you can do because the system is stealing your wealth through the very thing you work for, called money, which is not money anymore.
Right. Real money is actually gold and silver. Money has to maintain its value over long periods of time. Currency doesn't have to.
And this is historically, has always been, for thousands of years, this has been money.
5,000 years this has been the predominant currency. It became money when somebody minted it into coins in Lydia in about 680 BC. And each unit had the same buying power as the next one. They became interchangeable.
So let me ask you this. This printing of money out of just paper, this has been tried before, hasn't it?
Many, many, many times, and there's always one result. You get far, far higher prices of everything, but especially real money. When they start creating a whole lot of currency, eventually gold and silver lie in wait. And then when the public senses this inflation of retail prices that is caused by inflation of the quantity of currency in circulation, they rush back toward gold and silver, and they have for 5,000 years.
So name some governments that have attempted to print money.
The Weimar Republic. I don't know Germany. What I just did with that $100 trillion bill.
He's got a Zimbabwe.
The Zimbabwe, yeah.
Look at this one.
This is the most recent, a $100 trillion note. You know, this is the largest note ever printed, 100 trillion.
And this was printed in 2000.
Yeah, but when Zimbabwe was created as a country, when it went from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, they were, the Zimbabwean dollar was on parity with the US dollar. $1 US was the same as a Zimbabwe dollar. This doesn't buy anything today. It doesn't buy a cup of coffee.
What, doesn't even buy a cup of coffee?
No. In fact, they have ruined it by putting ink on it. You can't write you can't write a list, so it would have been more valuable at this point if it was blank.
Right. See, the Greeks did the same thing when they started clipping coins. They just take the silver off of it. The Romans tried it, the English tried it, the Germans tried it, the Chinese tried it, and now the US is trying it.
Yep.
And so that's why saving money is probably the biggest mistake you could make right now, because today money is no longer money. It's now debt.
I can vouch for that because my leg is now numb.
So all currencies throughout the world are in trouble, the same way this Zimbabwe dollar is in trouble. And that's the problem with saving money. After 1971, it was no longer money.
More than 70% of all the currency on the planet is US dollars.
If the US dollar goes, the world goes with it.
I'm preparing by getting fully diversified. I buy both gold and silver.
We're talking a lot about assets, and there are 4 primary asset classes. One is business. As an entrepreneur, you own a business. Number 2 is real estate. And we love rental properties that cash flow, real estate that puts money in our pocket every single month. Number 3 are paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, savings. Most E's and S's are in paper assets today. And number 4 are commodities, gold, silver, precious metals, oil and gas. For Robert and I, we're in business. We're in real estate. We own hundreds of properties in real estate. We have paper assets and we have commodities. So for us, when we talk about diversification, we're in all 4 asset classes.